United States President Joe Biden may have just started World War III. That is, if we listen to what many critics are saying about him. One of those critics is former President Donald Trump. He says that there could be a world war before the 2024 presidential elections, a war that he says wouldn't be possible at all if he was the one that was in power inside the White House. Critics of the Biden administration agree with Donald Trump, as they're saying that the Biden administration made these conflicts possible by giving Iran access to billions of dollars of frozen money, a move that Donald Trump openly criticized. There's no question that tensions are running high and that Iran means business. This has now led many experts to believe that World War III is just around the corner. The belief is that Iran would probably work with the likes of Russia, China, and even North Korea, countries that don't necessarily like President Biden. Here's what Donald Trump had to say about this entire situation.
Have you spoken with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu? How should the United States respond? And the same question for you, Mr. Speaker.
I don't want to say who I spoke to, but for the president of our country to actually put out a warning that he thinks that we're going to be attacked or they're going to be attacked, that's pretty pathetic. They wouldn't be attacking Israel if I were president, that I can tell you, and they never did. They wouldn't be attacking. Iran was in no position to attack. They had no money. They were broke. But now they have $221 billion, and they have Iraq, who has $300 billion, and Iraq has become a subsidiary of Iran. With all that we've done, with all of the fighting, all of the death, look at what happened, how incompetent the whole thing is. But I don't want to say who I spoke to, but I think it's a very, very dangerous period. This is a very dangerous period of time in our nation, and a big reason that it's dangerous that we have a president that's grossly incompetent. Thank you all very much.
Now, at this point, we're being told that Iran fired more than 300 drones and missiles in their initial attack. An attack that has been mostly unsuccessful according to Israel, as they've reported that they stopped 99% of those attacks. President Biden on his end has reaffirmed the United States' ironclad commitment to Israel's security. He also condemned Iran's attacks and has instructed the U.S. military to move aircraft and ballistic defense destroyers to the region. So yes, the United States recently helped in taking down the drones and the missiles that Iran sent to Israel. Now, he hasn't said that he expects an attack on American soil, but he did say that if an attack does happen, then he won't hesitate to take all necessary action to protect the citizens of this country. Many critics are completely unhappy about Biden's statement, and they even said some things I just can't mention here on YouTube. Now, before I really get into this here, guys, all I ask is that you take 1 second, drop a quick like for the video. We totally appreciate that. And I want to thank you so much for sharing these videos on Facebook and Twitter. Now, some Biden officials are actually worried, especially with the expected response of Israel that they believe will lead to a wider war. 3 people who are familiar with these talks between U.S. and Israel, they're saying that President Joe Biden has expressed his concern that Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is trying to drag us into this war. This could be why a senior administration official said that the United States will not participate in offensive operations against Iran. It's also being reported that Biden is telling Netanyahu not to retaliate against them. Many officials within Israel believe that it is impossible that they don't respond at all. Critics of President Biden say that he's basically sleepwalking our country into another war in the Middle East. Essentially, as they say that he's failed to influence Netanyahu's decision in Gaza towards Iran. This has led many to believe that we are now another step closer towards world war, given that Iran has received or may receive assistance from countries like Russia and China. If that happens, do you think President Biden is to blame? Now, besides this, President Biden is also facing criticism for his economic plan here at home in the U.S. Bidenomics has supposedly made more people broke compared to when Trump's administration was in place. To make matters worse, the president is only looking to make things worse for the American people. Just recently, the Biden administration finalized a rule that would make it more expensive for oil and gas companies to drill on public lands. They're doing this as energy prices continue to rise together with inflation. Just to give you an idea of just how humongous this increase is, the bond minimum that companies need to secure before drilling, it used to be $10,000. After the change from President Biden, the bond is now $150,000. That is more than a tenfold increase. Now, what's surprising is that several of the provisions in the rule were already codified by the Inflation Reduction Act, legislation that clearly did not live up to its name at all. This change means that the price increases are for sure going to be handed off to the lower and to the middle class. The idea is completely opposite to what Trump wants, as he said that he wants inflation to go down by drilling even more. So which of the two ideas do you guys think would actually lower inflation? Now, speaking of ideas to supposedly lower costs for the American people, the Biden administration is sticking to one of its bigger plans. The plan is to forgive as much student loan debt as he possibly can. This is despite the Supreme Court basically telling him that he can't do such a thing. The new plan is expected to help around 30 million borrowers. It's possible that some or even all of their college student loans are forgiven if Biden plan does work. The idea has long been a part of the president's campaign.
President Biden unveiling a new plan to wipe away student loan debt for millions of Americans.
CBS News Philadelphia reporter Jasmine Payot is here to tell us how borrowers can apply for loan forgiveness. Good morning, Jasmine.
Good morning, Jim. Janelle, the president is taking another shot at student loan cancellation. Less than 24 hours ago, Vice President Kamala Harris paid a visit to Philadelphia to push for that plan. Harris posted a roundtable conversation on the debt relief efforts. Efforts, they say, would cancel debt for more than 30 million Americans.
Today, too many Americans, especially young people, are saddled with unsustainable debts in exchange for a college degree.
President Joe Biden has a new strategy to forgive some student loan debt. The White House says it would help more than 30 million borrowers if implemented and combined with plans the administration has already enacted.
Even if they get by, they still have this crushing debt.
The initiative targets federal borrowers who have unpaid interest beyond a certain threshold, 20 or more years in repayment, eligibility for loan programs in which they're not enrolled, education from a so-called low financial value program, and certain hardships like medical debt.
Most people should not have to carry this kind of worry.
The new plans are more selective than Biden's previous initiative, which was for the most middle and low-income federal borrowers. The Supreme Court says action that broad needs to involve Congress, and many Republicans say taxpayers who didn't go to college shouldn't fund degrees for those who did.
Which has critics asking why he's fixated on it, given that it's possible that it backfires. Some critics argue that it's possible that he gets a lot of these votes even before it's decided that he can forgive these loans. This means it's really not going to matter if he has the power to do it or not, because he's mostly talking about it just to convince people to vote for him. It's also why some argue why he's not talking about Social Security, because older folks tend to hold back until they actually see results. They've fallen for enough of his tricks. There are those who claim that this is Biden's tactic to legally buy votes, while supporters say that it's only right to forgive these loans. The problem that many of these people don't see is that the loans aren't actually forgiven. They're just passed on to American taxpayers. This means that taxpayers will instead pick up the burden for all these loans rather than the people who applied for them. Many expect that taxes will be raised within the next 4 years if he wins again at the end of this year, so as to make this plan work. Are you guys willing to pay more taxes so that Biden can get 30 million assured votes by November? Now, as far as I'm concerned, I'm gonna do my best to keep you guys updated. I wanna thank y'all for hitting the like button. Thank you for subscribing and sharing these videos on Facebook and Twitter, and I'll see you on the next one.